that we have well here. So I'll tell you, last night while the shiur was going on, the reason I went on hold one or two times is because I had to do a Gemos Chesed with one of my children because car is stolen right in the middle of the shiur. What do you say to that? So in the schus of all of us learning together, a miraculous thing happened, which never ever happens in New York City. They found a stolen car. Who could believe that? There's a story, Shein Kamayu. I don't want to take time from learning over the story. The car was tracked down electronically. I just want you to know that the police are tracking every single person on this call because they were able to track it down through license plate information with readers and this sort of stuff. And this is really a little happy they found the car, but it's a little frightening. They know exactly where everybody is at any given time. So the only way to the only way to avoid this is standard-based manner to learn full time. Okay, Rabbi Sai, there is a fascinating piece of Stipler here, which, as always, is short and to the point, and it's particularly applicable. You'll see in a moment to us. I really should have shared this with Olam in the morning, but I just couldn't cram it in because the Inyanei Rabbi took so much time. But if you look here on page Utes, the Stipler has an aura which he wrote on the side of his Sefer Lev Aryeh. The Stipler wrote Haaretz on the top on the side of his farm. We've actually managed to print a few, and there the shaila was interesting shaila. There's only one Balkriya in town, the Oval. As you know, an Oval is not supposed to daven on Shabbos for the Amid, but he was only Balkriya. So is he allowed to be Yaitza, Mitzi, is he allowed to be Mitzi, the call in the Chiyuv of Krias HaTorah? Maybe it was an Oval during the week, and an Oval was Potter from Talmud Torah. I guess it was an Oval during the week. I misspoke if I said Shabbos. It was an Oval during the week, and he couldn't daven. Is he able to be a Balkriya? So obviously that depends on two things. A, what is Krias HaTorah? B, what is the role of the Balkriya in Krias HaTorah? So this was the sub-shaila to that is what happens if you have only 9 people, the minyan tzumtzum, and the Oval is mashlan the minyan. Is there a chiyuv to be Krias HaTorah? That's the shaila. So the Levaria writes that since Oval's usher to learn Torah, Hanik Daim, if he's usher to learn Torah, by definition he has no chiyuv to be Krias HaTorah. If he has no chiyuv to be Krias HaTorah, how can he possibly be Mitzi Acherim and not be mitzaref to the minyan? That is the shaila, and the Levaria is Ma'arich on this. On this, the Stipler wrote an interesting ha'ar. The Stipler says this depends, Rabbi Sai. It depends back in our shaila if it's chayvas tzibur or chayvas yachid. And second of all, it depends what the Balkriya is doing. Is he being mitzi the other people with a kriya de halacha, or is he just serving as a vehicle to create a shmiyah? Says the Stipler written on the side of his copy of the Levaria. If I'm going to say that there's no chiyuv on each person, there's only a chiyuv tzibur, so therefore, by definition, the kairei is not mitzi. Excuse me a second. Turn on another lamp here to get some more light. Then the Balkriya is not being mitzi anybody b'kriyasai. So what is he doing? All he's doing is he's the vehicle for pushing Torah out there that people should have to learn Torah. And look what he says. Look what he says. Shlomo, read me line 3.
Ke'ein drasha Yarchei Kallah.
Look at that. What do you say to that? She'ein arav ha'dairesh moitzias etzibur. Ella malamed es etzibur. I'm going to use this line at Yisrael. I'll tell you right now. It's such a good line that no one can be mitzi you guys with Talmud Torah. Zoom shmoom. No.
Would it be the same then if you were an onain?
If you were a onain? I haven't got to the oval part yet. Let's first talk about the Shmir Kriya part. You have to understand the what he's saying here before we can apply it to the lumdist avel. So what is he doing? He's not being moitzi anybody. He's a dairesh about Krias, teaching people Torah. The Tanai. I'm a Ram, I guess. I don't think they had Yarchei in Israel in those days. They had them in Babel. So maybe they did. Ram who were Yaitse people with their objects. Ram who created a template of allowing people to learn Torah B'Rabbim. So he says the same way at Balkair Mefarseim LeRabbim B'Divrei HaTorah Shekaira. If the whole thing is to create a vehicle for learning Torah, so why does it have to be Bar Chiyuv to learn Torah? The Avel can learn Torah. The Avel is a human tape recorder, human tape recorder. No one. Let me ask you a question. Will anybody deny that? I know when it comes to certain music shmiras and stuff like that, there's chiluk between tape recorder and live. Then they're going to deny if, on occasion, including this Sunday, since the Rabbi Weiss is traveling, we're going to show a videotape of a shir that he gave. Are you telling me now that you're not yaitze because it's not live? Of course you're yaitze Talmud Torah, because his job was to deliver Torah in a medium that allows you to hear it.
So play a recording of the Kriya.
It's a good kasha. Effective Shlomo. So why don't we just play a recording of the Kriya? So there's two reasons, two answers to that. First of all, if it was just Talmud Torah Dik Allah, you're right. But since there's in addition to this, and you must know by now, at the end of all these Shiur Shechiras, we fuse them all back together, which means that there's both, and you'll see that we'll be doing that soon. There's both the Kriya Dik Halacha and the Shmiya Dik Halacha. Therefore, you can't be Yaitze the Kriya Dik Halacha without Kriya Dik Ksav. And a tape recorder is not a Ksav. So you'll tell me, well, then what's this business here? Why can an Avel be? Why can an Avel be Mitzi? So the Stipler is only telling you the Avel can be Mitzi, that Chelik Shaboy that is Talmud Torah. But in Lule, in fact, if you need a full-fledged Kriya Dik Halacha, maybe it shouldn't work. He says, I didn't cut in Torah. This is the Raya that we've been dealing with this Raya here, Rabbi Sai, all day, and we have no answer to this Raya. Why can I cut and work? So now the Stapel does what I've been saying for the last 2 days, that the two shakiras of Kriya Shmi and Tzibur Nyacha are intertwined. He says, even according to those people who hold that Kriya Satire is a chayvav yachid. He said the Stapel important decide what sort of chayvav yachid is it? It's only a chiyuv to be loimed, which means to hear divrei Torah. But that doesn't mean that the kaira is mitzi oisai. This is a halacha of zeh mevarech and somebody else's kaira. So when this person makes a bracha, which we do, and the other Balkriya it reads, then the Balkriya is yaitse the mevarech. Why is that? Because me'ikar hadin, me'ikar the early takon of Chazal, who laned?
Everybody.
Everybody laned. And therefore, when they took that away, what was left? What was left was a chiyuv for everybody to lane. All the Shiva Kriyim at least have to lane. Since they can't do that, so we hired a professional mashallah, a shliach, and he does that. But who is he mitzi, Rabbi Maris? Who is he being mitzi? Who is he being mitzi? Only one person.
Mavarech.
Right, not the rabbi. Not even the gabbai. He's only being mavarech. He's only being mitzi to mavarech. Astounding chiddush. Which means nafkamil ladina. You don't have to listen to berachas. You don't have to say amen on berachas Torah. Only the mavarech has to be careful to say amen, because no one else is a partner in this endeavor. You hear the pshat, Rabbi say, wonderful pshat.
Why would the Mavarech be saying amen to his own bracha? Did I miss that? I'm sorry.
The Mavarech not necessarily. You're right. I withdraw that. That was a malapropism. The Mavarich has to listen to the entire Kriya carefully. Maybe this goes to the Shiloh, which we haven't yet been able to discuss, whether you lane along with the Baal Kriya, right? Why do we lane along with Baal Kriya? Anybody know?
Isn't it because it's our chiyuv to lane and we're not because
what are we not doing by listening? What part are we not getting by listening? Maybe
we're not speaking? We don't have the.
We're not getting. Now take it further. What part are we not getting? L'chayra, we're not getting b'teich ksav, right? We're not getting b'teich ksav because by listening, I'm listening. Now that you'll say can't be a problem because then what about everybody else? How am I Yaitz Megillah? How am I Yaitz Megillah? If I'm just listening to the Baal Kriya read from the Megillah, and the Megillah is Abba Sefer, it has halachas of Krias Kodesh. So unless you have your own Megillah and you're learning with or reading with, which is a minhag that people have, okay, they have that minhag because they don't want to necessarily miss words or they don't want to hum on it, and etc. But maybe the reason is for that because if it's a din in Kriya Matech Ksav, you need to be able to follow it along. So maybe, and we'll see that this is a dion in the Paiskim. That's where the issue of staying along with Baal Kriya developed, because Adkan, you can be mighty you in the Tchelik Tehranish Rabbi, like a Rav, a Darish, and the Yarchei Kallah. Because all he has to do is produce sounds of Torah. Adkan, he can be out to your chiyuv to read. But maybe what you're hearing, which has to be a Kriya Matech Ksav, maybe that's not good enough. Because that's why you have to lead it yourself. That seems to be the possibilities here. And if you look here, he says, he refers you to a Mishabur. The Mishabur is brought here in Reish Pei Beis. Am I lucky to have Pesach on tonight? Seems not. Okay. So there, I don't know, Mordechai, do we want to cook up this Mishabur here? Maybe it makes sense to see it inside. It's if you can, tell me if you can. Reish Pei Beis Yud Gimel 282:13. Yeah, nicht. Okay. I assume Mordechai is probably working on it. So he says, "Kim the matik yagan."
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Fine. Kim the matik yagan the bakat and kishu shat chak. What in ba'avol? B'shat chak cut is allowed to be kaira. Why should it all be worse? Kain near l'chayra. Tzarichin l'ulam v'starif l'min asar tzarichin v'talibedin ain't cut v'starif l'asar. I'm not sure what he means by this. What's talibedin? The avol is talibedin or the cotton is talibedin? I think it means the avol. You have to see a avol, a cotton can be used, but he's still not starved to the minion. What about an avol? You can use him as a Baal Kriya, but he still may or may not be starved to the minion. Okay, everybody get it? Beautiful. I'm going to wait a moment to see if Rav Mordechai can bring up this Mishabura, because I think it's rather an important Mishabura. And then we'll move on to the Shlomo.
I have to open my Parlan, sorry. I'm taking.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
In the meantime, so let's talk about the Shlomo has two or three Simanim Krias Torah. One of them is on Parshas Shkolim. So we will hear a shiur from Rabbi Osband on to Adarm and Parshas Zachar and the Kriya of the Dal Parshas, which is one of our categories. And he, along with Rav Moshe and others, say an important insight in the categorization. They say the Kriya Parshas Zachar is totally different than the Kriya Parshas Shkolim, Parshas Parah, and Parshas Chodesh. Why? The three latter. Let's take Parah out of the possible deraisic category is the same as Zachar, and say those three are a chiyuv only if there is a tzibur to read. Should I pause here and wait for you to work the Barilan magic?
Ari line has to cooperate and open first. So just keep going with the Yishlon.
And these Moderna guys, you can't ever trust
How
them,
can you can't help.
right? Can't trust them. Okay. So the Shlomo said a very important insight. He says that the difference in their reciting. The Parshas Kriya, Parshas Zachar is a deraisa based on the Sifri of Zachar Bepeh. The other ones are not there to explicate Bepeh. They're there as a chayvas tzibur, that if the tzibur is around and you have 10 people, so you lay in Parshas Kallah, but these direct Parshas. And therefore, it's clearly not a chayvas yachid. So the Shlomo HaKohen. Parshas Zachar is a chayvas yachid. My nafkamina, if you don't have a Sefer Torah, you're mechuyev to read Parshas Zachar from a chumash. So in the footnote, which is not written by Rabbi Shlomo HaKohen, it's written by the Madir, because he sends you to a shtickle from Pesach in the Mikra Kodesh. And there he says, if that's the case, even according to those shitas, that Parshas Para is Midai Raisa, brought in the Taisus and Megillah, nevertheless, it's chaluk in its Yisaid din, that Parshas Para is not a din and yachid. So maybe it's the Raisa, says the Madir, B'das Shlomo HaKohen, but it's a Daraisa de Kechiyut Tzibur, not a Daraisa de Kechiyut Chaybas Yachid. Maybe it's Daraisa, but it is not a Chaybas Yachid. It is a Daraisa de Chaybas Tzibur Parshas Parah. Shkolim and HaChodesh are clearly not Chaybas Yachids. You did not hear Parshas HaChodesh. You blew them off there, but you're not required to read it from Mitaych a Chumash. Shein Kain, Parshas Zachar. Parshas Kallah also not, because Parshas Kallah may be a Dairaisa, but it's a Dairaisa, he says, which involved in Tibur, and therefore, as long as the Tibur read it, you are a Yaitzeh. He says, this is the Makar for Rabbeinu Hagadol Hagraz Minik. The Gaon used to be, the going used to be Oila for Parshas Zachar. And he would read it himself. Why? Because the guy agreed to this. The guy held that it was a Chayvas Yachid. And therefore, if it's a Chayvas Yachid, mitzvah by Yaiser B'Shluchai. Every Shabbos, all of us are using Shlichus to be Mekayim. Because a Shatz, which is what a Baal Kriya is by definition a Meshaleach and a Sheleach. It's Shlichus. So therefore, the Gaon felt that this halacha, as espoused in the Gemara Kedushin in the first Amid of Paragish Makadosh of Mitzvah Ba Yotzim B'Shluchai, why does that not apply here too? And therefore, the chiyuv is to explain it, and the chiyuv is to read it. Other ones, he was not Ayla, because they're the chiyuv clearly is Shmiya, and there was no chiyuv Shmiya on them because it is no chiyuv kriya on them because they're cholik b'yisayid. Let's see the site here. Reish Pei Beis Sif Gimel Brahma, and here we go. Akal min shiva, Phil Yishu Kat Jelim Yivarcham Archam Yishlai Dik Ben Kait Zibur. Vila Dachim Sarflam in a crew. Now, unless you call Nashon Tiny, you can't have a whole meeting of ladies. Sorry, in the Shaisa Kaisel. And then we talked about it. Rabbi Kanani. Okay, says the Mishabura. So the Mechaber says that a cotton is okay. Says the Mishabura in Siv Cotton Gimel. Shiur says that a cotton can be oila, but it can't be about kriya. Who yikra b'kayel from b'sefer v'aylam amra achra b'lachash. Kallah to be nechvasim b'shmi meno ashia b'shtei cyrus. Not sure why the Shiur is defining for us here that a chelik integrali of Krias HaTorah is Elam Eimer Achra Balachash. And ask you a question: is how many people just read Balachash from the Chumash? What would that help? Not sure what the Shiur is trying to say here. Kamak ain't some kairi acher. It is about like really gamri. Stop when we got them. Eshesh lakum by zeh afilu. So this is the halacha. Halacha is b'shat chak cotton is allowed to be kair. Why? Teres is not a din kriya. It's a din of shmiya. So cotton is able to be mashmiel rabim, the kriya of the Torah. Okay. Rabbi say this is the stipler. Bin Shlomo, we gave the introduction. Now let's go to the second part of the Bin Shlomo, which is very important for the categorization of the various different 10, 11, or 12, I forgot the number, types of Krias that we have. Lafizet, Dalid, Chilukim, Yesh, Krias HaTorah. Lamin Shleisha, to Mekayim the Etzim Takana of Moshe Rabbeinu, the first three people, the has to be Bar Chiyuva and Gama Kairi. The Gimel at Zion, which is the Mechaber you just saw, Medina the Gemara, Kat Nail Min Zion. Misana Minik and Eila Terek Klal, a film Godly Yamik a Makre. What does that Makre mean? The Balkriya. After the Alma, you can have both about Kriya and a cotton. Samchu, many bar mitzvah boys. So let's say the guy did not bring Shtei Cyrus. Let's say we're not 100% sure. You never know. My son Chaim was 16 years old. We were in Israel once, V'yantiv, and we went to daven the Brisky Yeshiva because I think my son Rabbi was learning there. And one of the highlights of any Yantiv there is to walk in there, and you get to shake the lulav of the Yeshiva. There's, I don't know, 15 of them spread out there, and to strike him because, of course, the kashas of Dal Minim is special there. To make a long story short, so we stand in line, and we get to our turn, and okay, I get to shake, and my son Rabbi gets to shake, and my son was 16 years old. The person in charge, who was, I won't say what his name was, but his last name has the same name as the Beis Levi, looks at him and he says, "No." So he says, "Well, what do you mean? Why not?" So anybody want to postulate what the punchline of this story was?
Was it on the first day?
No, it wasn't the first day. That's the big chiddush. That wasn't the first.
Too young,
He wasn't sure he was a gadol.
right?
So even though Shlomo says Shlomo, so let's say he wasn't a gadol. So Shlomo was kosher and Yantiv and Yantiv. I'm trying to remember what was the first day now. Would make obviously the story is more geschmack if it's the first day. Could be it was the first day, maybe it was the first day. Anyway, he wouldn't give him the lulav because unless you knew who you were, unless you were clearly somebody like me who was clearly bar mitzvah. So my son Chaim was properly taken. Why couldn't he give it to him? Because he couldn't get it back from him. And we all understand that, right? Cutting is kind of an amakne, so he wouldn't be able to get his lulav back because before he gave you the lulav, he went through a whole shtickle Torah. That's come on, and then you're getting it back. He told us to every single person. It took probably a couple of hours. Everybody did this. He wouldn't give it to him because he wasn't sure he'd be able to get it back. Why wasn't he Samech on, on a chazaka that he was certainly a gadol? In Britain, not Samech chazakas. The rest of the world is, and therefore, according to this Shlomo Kaim Vilna, cotton can be oilam after. So what's the problem? And a cotton can even be about kriya for the cotton who's oila. However, next week, Parsha Shkolim, ain't a cotton oila im kaira ba'atzmai. A cotton is not oila if he is kaira ba'atzmai. I lost the place. The Parsha Shkolim ain't a cotton oila im kaira ba'atzmai. Mamakar who gadol. Why? Why not? Because Parsha Shkolim is a, why not? Because this way it's Tart Laresa. He's a cotton and the Bakri is a cotton. Maku Gadol Yeshli stop at the Efshin Mikal Makam Aser. Given to Kriyo Chiyav Asal Likres cotton. Miyum Rosh Chodesh Nisan Yaseh Bar Mitzvah Efsher the Mutal Likroisaid B'Kihai Gavna Mechuyev B'Kriya Kamai Gadol Mamish Yeshli stop it B'Zeh. Why is he mechuyev? He's mechuyev because it's Rosh Chodesh. And it's mechuyev in Rosh Chodesh. So what? Why is Rosh Chodesh different than Shkolim? First Chodesh near the Gan King Damla Parsha Shkolim de Chiyuva. Why is Rosh Chodesh different than Shkolim? Not sure. Umiyu bekula ein mitzvah likreis ba'asmeis l'shmei dikar chiv l'shmei. Barzach mitzvah likreis ba'apsim after the mitzvah is m'shlucha as the Goyen said. Okay, then he goes into Parsha Shkolim dikar raid, which would require a very big setting of background because a lot of it has to do with the procedure of the bringing of Shkolim in the base of Mikdash. So the Russian brachas attacks this on straight on. The Russian translation Uchlu says the following: in this sugya of can a cotton be mazamin? So the Rush says, good. We have a close name. The hard to salki cotton, the Evid of Isha, the listener of Talmud Torah Lamina Shiva. Ask the rest of the fundamental kasha. How can the cotton get an aliyah, as you saw in the Mechaber, based on the Gemara? How come all Lamina Shiva? Here is the language of the Rush. Seems to be pretty reasonably straightforward. Mishun the Sefer Torah is Shmiya Kai. Sefer Torah is Shmiya de Kallah. Bracha ain't about levatala. Like Mavarch Mashek said, son all the retire. Alasha Bachamana, Vashanaslan the Torah. What the rest saying? We could keep the bracha levatala. Why? Because if you're making a bracha on something which is al divrei Torah, and it turns out that you are not mechuyev, maybe it's bracha levatala. That would be if what? If what category of bracha it was? What would that be? If it was what category of bracha? Ha-mitzvahs. But since Berchus, the Rosh seems to be telling you, the Berchus is Torah before, whether it's Krias Torah, your general Berchus Torah, or Berchus Hashevach. So Berchus Hashevach never goes to waste. Let's say you weren't Mechuyev B'davar, but even you are Mechuyev B'davar, just giving a Shvach to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, giving us to Torah. In the case of V'nyachnu V'tzetzimenu, it's a tefillah. Maybe Torah Seichel Shema. And he says, Ad Hei L'divrei Beretam. Then he goes into the well-known Chumash B'Yadai. So the Rush here seems to be pretty unambiguous. The Rush uses the language here that there is halacha of Shmiya. Another another important nitun is in the Prima Garden. Prima Garden, I won't say it inside, so we don't have time because I don't want to get to the Nesivos HaKodesh. The Prima Garden says a sum is pater from Krias HaTorah because he can't read it himself. And somebody who can't read it himself, he can't be yotzit with shmiyat with somebody else. Why? The chol arei labila ain't bila makevus, but he's not rei labila because he's a summa. Is a raya clearly that he holds it to Chiyuv Kriya because the summa can hear because he can't read, and therefore this would seem to be dovetail with the sheets of the Rishonim and the sheets of Taisus that we saw in Saita, which clearly says that that way. Now the Rambam, going back to this, we've heard this, we said this diak already numerous times. The Rambam says right here again on page Chavdal that the chiyuv, the reason of Gimel Yamim is below Shmias HaTorah. So it comes along the Chadik of Rav. The Chadik of Rav is the Baal Nesivos HaKodesh. He later settled in Yerushalayim, and he was Mekor to the Bris Rav. And in Bris, I'm not making this as a template for Shivas. I'm just telling you that the Nesivos HaKodesh was very well high thought of in the highest verified yeshiva circle. Nesivos HaKodesh does what I mentioned earlier to you before. Says, when we have yeshiva shkira, shmir and shkira, and kriya, often we come back, combine the two again. And then Nesivos HaKodesh says the mitzvah priest has two dinim attached to it. No surprise. The mitzvah of kriya and the mitzvah of shmir. And I'll bring you a raya, said Nesivos HaKodesh, from a very famous mitzvah, which the Kagigeniks just learned, which is the mitzvah of hakel. Mitzvah is hakel. What kind of mitzvah is hakel? So if you look here on the page Chafei, quotes to Taisvis. And he says the summa is pater from Krias HaTorah because it's Dvarim Sheb'Ksada we saw this morning. Why is it Mechuyev and Shmiyah? And go to the last three lines of the page on the right side of Mordechai. The Hala Eilam Krias HaTorah Ika Beis Inyanim. Krias HaTorah Shmiyah is Krias HaTorah. There's two dinim. Krias HaTorah, that the Kriya should be done in a proper way with Baruch Yuva on all sides, and Shmiyah of Krias HaTorah. What's the right to that? And that is the raya is hakel. The Gemara says that why do men come to hakel? Because they come to learn. Why do women come? The shmaya. What's the shmaya we're talking about? Shmaya we're talking about here is divrei kavushim, all the things they say at hakel. So it's pasha that anashim are obviously the melech read hakel. So what happens if a nashim who can't read? Do they at least retain the chiyuv of shmiyah, or no? Or do we somehow say no? They're pater, they're pater. Says the Nesivos HaKodesh, there's two chiyuvim. If you have one chiyuv, if you have both chiyuvim, you have both chiyuvim. If you can't have one chiyuv because you're a summa, you should have another chiyuv. If you can't have two chiyuvim because you're in hakel, you're an isha, and therefore you can't have the Torah aspect of it. So about it, you have a shmiyah halach. So a summa, saginar, even though it can't be kaira, why should he not have a shmiyah halach? Mechatesa, they should pater in both cases. Adkan the raya shalachayr ein lov tshuva of the Nesivos HaKodesh. So now, what did Taisa say? Why was it summa pater? Because the halacha of Dvarim Sheb'Ksav had to show loimram mempeh. If that's the case, if a person who wants to be yaitzu the shmiyah of Krias HaTorah, he can't hear it balpeh. Why? Because even if he's not a summa, even if he's a regular person, because when the Gemara says yaitzu b'shmiyah, has to be because one mechanism, what we said, what mechanism are we talking about? Shmei Ka'ina. Shmei Ka'ina has a requirement that everything that you're doing there has to be the right way. It can't be might use Shmei Ka'ina. I'm doing it the wrong way. I don't know. Let's take a vitamin muscle. I want to be might to you Shemei Kaina on video bikurim. So I can't say Yait to Shemei Kaina when I come up and I don't say the proper video. I don't say Lachalti Ben B'Mayim Ben besides the Ben Race. I don't say that. So if I don't say that, which is what the Torah told you to say, how can you say you're being Yait to might to somebody Shemei Kaina? The Shemei Kaina is. This is already Lam Shaila and seen the base slave in the Chazanish, but Shemei the kind of Pshuta without going into Lumdus is a tape recorder mechanism. But that person who's the tape recorder has to get it right. So Mamela, how could it be that you're like Yoina Mamish? And therefore you can't be Yoina B'Tayich Shleip Nechsa Aksav, because Dvarim Shlam Peh, Yater Sham Yater Sham Learn Al Peh. So you can't say it al peh. And therefore, Shmiya, you're not yaitz al peh unless you heard with a ksav. And you heard all the ksavs from the sefer. But if you heard Shalayal Day Sefer, it's considered to be Shmiya al peh. So therefore, somebody who's trying to be yaitz with Shmei Kaineh, he has the din of Shmiya. And therefore, he's kind of mamish. And anytime we're Eineh is aser, and Shemei is also aser, because he explains in very interesting language. Move down about 15 lines to the end of the line is after a bracket. Chom makam the oina aser. That's the end of the line. Kam kein Shemei aser. The Shemei can mean the koyach hashmiu mamish koyach hadibur. That's the pshat Shemei Kaineh. Because I'm mikra dibur. My shad Shemei dibur mikra. Can't come out to bushel adam asul davar marshal tav al peach and ami rot lotzad deshmir. Gam can asul shmei al peh. You want to be yaitza? You can't hear it al peh. Mali shmei mali dibur. Says the Mesilas Kodesh. Now I'll explain to you what the problem with Taisus of Sheshes was. Sheshes was a saginar, and it's patur Krias Torah because the branch of Stav. Once that's true, he has to be patur for Shmir too. Why? I'll say, what? Why not? Shemei Kaineh. But that doesn't help, because what kind of a nia does he have? He has an nia b'peh. Shemei Kaineh can't create things that you don't have. You can say if everybody's happy and everybody's equivalent, I can move the ania of party A to the ledger of party B. But party B is a summa, and therefore his kriya by definition is a shaloi mitaycha kriya. What does it help? Does it help? And therefore, you're not accomplishing anything. What's the upshot of this whole back and forth here? He concludes in the following way, and it's a Dora Chadash. If he say is Chadash Hadin, so I can tell you a Chiddush. When it comes to Krias or Torah, you have to hear B'Taycha Sefer. You heard Balpeh, you're not Yaitzik Dvarim Shav B'Sav Yater Shamam Leil Mapeh. You'll ask a kasha. What about Nashim B'Shmias Krias and Megillah, even though they did not hear B'Taycha Sefer? Why did they hear B'Taycha Sefer? They heard from the Megillah Kshera. So I was trying to figure this out earlier. I think the pshat is they didn't have the ability. Nashim don't have Megillahs. They don't have the ability to directly be yaitza b'taycha ksav. Why does it have to be directly yaitza? Why can't it be yaitza from the kriya of the Baal kriya that he's leaning b'taycha ksav? I'm not sure, but this is his raya, and therefore he says that they're yaitzi, even though they don't know what's going on. The parrot says that maybe Krias Megillah is more kal because it is for Psumadisa, and therefore, okay. But the wrong we already saw last week. I don't have to repeat this again. In the 1939, somewhere in Lower East Side of Manhattan, one of the more famous letters of the Shalem was sent to the Igros Moshe. And this tshuva, Moshe took this story here extremely seriously, and I don't know, Mar Cheshvan of Tough Race Static Tests was a year before the world blew up. But Moshe was learning unbothered here, and I guess in the east side of Manhattan, lower east side of Manhattan. They got a famous story, famous Shiloh, which you all probably heard once, that they made a wrong cheshbon for a bar mitzvah boy and they gave him the wrong parsha. And Moshe was asked, is it possible that they let the kid, even though he is not yet a bar mitzvah, can become the Baal Kriya? So Moshe has a 3-page, 4-column, 5-column, long information on this. And he goes through the entire gather of Shmiya in Krias HaTorah, and Kedavka Kodesh going through about 5 or 6 different sugyas. I'm just going to excerpt here 1 or 2 lines because we can't do more than that, and then we'll close. And we will close with perhaps a word from Itzi Pesach. So Ramesha brings in Reish Pei Beis, brings the Knesset Agdel that we saw the Magen Avraham. That's the one that Shiur goes on. Shekatan and Yachli is makri. Cotton can't be about kair. Yiksha Prima Gadim. Why not? Picking Bailam in Zion. And in those days, the oil was kairei. The Chazina Shemaitzi. Can Yachli is gam makri leilam. This is the Prim Gadam's kasha, why he can't be a Baal Kriya. And he said, therefore, but it's no Gadol, a cotton can be a Baal Kriya. So let's go down to 4 lines to the bottom. Hanachal is nightly tarsi of Magen Avraham. Dam b'chrachol leimar. She'enkris tark my kris megillah berachas hamakadayim. Shemashi yatzachem b'shemas mechiyuv akriya v'abracha shalehem hu midin shmei kaina. Those things are all the use of the mechanism that creates the ability to be yaitza is shmei kaina. Loi kain Krias HaTorah, says Ramesh. The other rabba shkirak mashloin kol prasha yatza. The tzarich dafka misper krum chalukal v'yam nimtish ikar den einish ya'ayna. Did I read the right thing? Did I miss a line here somewhere? No. The ikar din is the snapshot that there should be shmayik ayna. Dafka shishma eich shemisper nashon karin HaTorah. The person has to hear how anywhere from 3 to 7 people are karin HaTorah. Therefore, says Ramesh, there's no need for the Baal Kriya to be mighty. You don't have to be mighty them. And then Ramesh goes on to done this with Sugyas, going through all the various Sugyas of Hachana, but this is its fundamental chiluk between Krias HaTorah and all other things. You want to know what the Psak Halacha here was? So, on page Lamed, it concludes, totally, this is exactly the wrong way of learning with Moshe, but I'm honest because I don't have any more time. L'chein, af kishakatan kisha'ela ba'atzmai yachal ikrei parshasai ba'atzmai v'yaitim zatzivum b'kamak liyas makri l'kriyam acherim eina yachal. Can't be about kriya. He can learn his own parsha, and he can somehow, that works. And the tzibur could be yaitza if he's learning his own parsha, his own aliyah. Any yachal, but he cannot be about kriya for other people's aliyahs. His own aliyah, maybe. And he goes through some shlichus, the Zachen. L'chein, apeshat tzchak ein lak lofi zeki v'tam mocher v'tam b'rem b'rem b'kilom b'shat tzchak b'mua. Kamakal Medina with Tsar, Kallah, Ritzim, Mishpuch, so right to create Lahaklik, Parmegan, the Ime Elam, because Moshe says it's like Parmegan and everybody else. I don't agree to Parmegan is heter, that a B'Shas Chak is mutter, but if it's such a big B'Shas Chak that the Mishpacha is, go off the derech, we'd say today, or whatever, be so damaged that's going to cause them great pain, I'll let you be makel, according to Prima Garden, which holds that it is okay. Now, what's the Prima Garden? Where the Prima Garden comes from? That already is something which we'll have to wait for another time. For the end of the day, we didn't have 100% dispositive of this. You can see in Ayin Gimel was a sad truth about someone who's married to a guy. Can we give him an aliyah for his bar mitzvah? Okay. Let's conclude here. Let's take a snippet here out of the Heart Tzvi. The Heart Tzvi wants to know if somebody didn't hear Parsha Zachar, it is Yaitz B'Shmiya in the Parshas Hashavua B'Zmana, which is Parshas Kiseitse. Why is this year different? Why is it more relevant this year? I would even go
12
further.
months.
Exactly. Every time there's an Ibriyar, there are those who are makbid, and it's a shtickle yeshiva shtick to announce it in the Baal colony just to irritate the Balabatim. They are makbid to be mechaben, and they go up to the Balkaira and tell them to mechaben, to be to you, and they do all the shtick of Parsha Zachar, including make them repeat it twice, because the Chazal tell us that Leitishkach, this man of Shikha, as explicated by Chazal, is 12 months. More than 12 months, you forget. That's why Avail is Nashtakim Alev after your base Chodesh. Since, as Rav Mordechai says, it's 13 months between last year's Parsha Zachar and this year's Parsha Zachar, because of what we're doing right now, right? Because we added 4 weeks as we speak, right? As we speak. Parsha Zachar would be 3 weeks or whatever. Normally would have been last week, but this year it's not. So therefore, some people are makbid to this. But if you basic want to know, you can be halal, be yaitza, you blue Parsha Zachar, you can be yaitza and Parsha Tzitza. So the Heart Tzvi says, I'll tell you, this depends on machlekes. The Raven that we saw earlier, and Red Vaz, if the mitzvah of Krias HaTorah is Shmiya or Kriya. And he says, I have a kasha, a psak of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Lubavitcher Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek that we encountered before says, since the Gemara says Kat Melamin Shiva, clearly there's no Chayiv of Kriya, because how could it be Maitzi? Says the Har Tzvi, I'm mispali on the Tzemach Tzedek. There's a big nafkamini here. What happens if there was Kavanas Shaimeya, but there was not Kavanas Mashmiya? Are you or not? So he says, Inyanei l'chayra. I don't have time to go through the whole thing because we only have 2-3 minutes, but I'm going to tell you 2 or 3 bullet points out of this. Let's do the first paragraph. And it's nechshav that you require yourself. You don't have to go over to Balkair Hakim B'Shainik. Just be yaitz yourself. And he asks, he brings a raya from the Hilchos Megillah, which I don't have time to go into now. And he says, Chasam B'ni, Agri Kayin. Anybody know whose that is? Bottom paragraph. It's Rav Kain's father, Rabbi Yosef Kain, was Chassan B'ni. Rav Pesach had a son. His name was Raphael Frank. Raphael Frank had his name was Rabbi Yosef Kain. And Yosef Kain, I remember when he lived there only about 20 years ago, had a son, Rabbeinu Rav David Kain. Yosef Kain was the one who wrote the Ha'aris in the bottom of the B'kari Kodesh that all of you use in Yad. He says, Rabbi Yosef Kain, and it's in the B'kari Kodesh, this raya too. You don't have to go with Balkair and tell me, please be mitzvah. You don't have to do that. It brings a raya from Yerushalmi, and I don't have time to go through all of it. Several rayas from Yerushalmi. So he concludes here at the bottom. Ikra Advarim Shekastav new in the bottom of the next page. Because the Ikra din of Krias HaTorah was today. You might see the Shaimim as if everybody laned, and he says this is a favorish Riven, and the Riven we saw this morning, which I don't have time to learn to do inside because you all saw it. Mevuyer b'Riven, about 10 lines down. Mevuyer b'Riven. Mevuyer b'Riven. To Krias HaTorah lahaitzias atzivdei chavasai. To be chashav that everybody read it for himself, and that's why because the Torah lamavarich haitzias Shaimim. Says, however, the Radvaz is says the bracha is only for the individual mevarech, and the shaymim were not mischayev in this bracha whatsoever. So we have a machlekes in the Rishonim between the Raven early, the Radvaz late, to whether what the role of the mevarech is. Is the mevarech's bracha unique and singular to him, or is he actually being mevarech for everybody else? It says according to Radvaz, Krias HaTorah Gufa is not for everybody else. Who says? And he says, I found this in the Tzemach Tzedek of Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, that everybody is a chiyuv. He says this is a chayvasya tzibur v'haraya. A cotton can be mitzi. Cotton can be mitzi. How can be a chayvat tzibur which a cotton mitzi? And he says, what do you mean? The Raven says clearly, Krias HaTorah is like Hashem sheichashav. As each one read it, therefore it's clearly a machlekes submission. I even end the thing. So lamaisa ladina, you have to go over and tell me about a kairei to be mitzi you. And on this, if it's a chayvus of the Yachid, maybe the chayvus of the tzibur that it be lamed, maybe not. Maybe Parshas Zachor is different. I'm not sure. That to be discussed in Ritzhem when we get to a Yudim in Parshas Zachor. Okay, my Tyra. This is the last Hachana Shiur. I'll see everybody, Mir Tzhem, whoever can make it. See everybody in Eretz Yisrael. Can't make it. I hope that so far I haven't gotten a clear answer on the technology link, which is distressing to me because I want to make sure. I was hoping you'd get it before Shabbos, but I assume sometime before Monday you will get it. For our purposes, I will ask Mordechai and Pesach to send out internal emails to all our Chevra anyway, reminding them again of the schedule. The only thing that will be missing there will be the link. The missing link. I remember when I was growing up, that was something, and we'll try to get out to you. For those of you who cannot come, we'll be able to participate at least in the evening shiur live. The other shiur, whatever we can, we'll try. I think, as I said, we'll learn the week after. But at least those 4 shiurim you'll be able to participate in, and we'll get you the relevant timing. Those of you who are coming to Israel, we squared away the Bnei Brak, and hopefully that will be sent out as an email tomorrow. We'll be downloading Meyer and hearing from Gershon Edelstein in his house, and then we'll be going somewhere close to hear Divrei Torah from a guy of Okay, all this to be determined. Anybody who has any problems, issues, questions tomorrow, feel free to email me. And obviously, I'm available whenever I can be available, except for, let's say, Shabbos. Everybody have a good Shabbos. Thank you for the opportunity to learn with you. Of course, of the last week, crammed a lot in. And as I said, I hope to see you both in person and otherwise. Good Shabbos, my entire friends.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good Shabbos. Thank you.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Thank you, everybody. Amen. Same to you. Oh, listen. Oh, I forgot, Rabbi Snyder. Are you stuck? You want to come to my house for Shabbos or what? What's the
Nothing.
story?
I think so. I tentatively have a flight into Philly. My son will pick me up. It depends what the weather is here. They're talking about 12 inches of snow. It hasn't happened yet. That's why my Delta flight was canceled tonight.
12 inches in Detroit,
Yeah.
even though it didn't happen yet.
No, it's in process.
So it's not gonna. So what are you gonna do? So how you know you're gonna get a flight to Philly?
I don't. It's scheduled.
And your son will pick you up from Lakewood or what? Where does he
From
live?
Philly.
Mistake.
Then it'll drive me to Newark, mostly Shabbos.
Drive you to Newark from where?
From Lakewood. It's 11 o'clock flight, United.
Oh, you're not going on the early flight.
No,
You're
no,
going
no.
on the
That'd be
11.
impossible.
11 o'clock flight. Oh. I don't know why I didn't take that United flight. It's so stupid of me. I don't know why I took this one stupid allow flight, which is
Nope.
okay. No, because it would have been much better for me to be there a little earlier, so I don't have to drive myself crazy. Okay, Rabbi Sai, I didn't think of it. Everybody have a good Shabbos, and I'll see you in Red Shem next week.
Okay.